Hey, what's up? This is Gregory D. Anderson Jr. with Greg Speaks Live. Today, I have something for you. It's a treat because it's something that I resonate with significantly. In my opinion, one of the greatest sitcom scenes between a father and son was on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And it was when his father showed up. Of course, initially, he was talking with Uncle Phil. And he wanted Uncle Phil to go break the news to Will that he wasn't going to be able to take him or pick him up because it was his time. And of course, keeping in mind he's been on and in and out, never really consistent, constantly breaking promises. And it's so hurtful to a child when you say you're going to do something and you break your promise. That's very hurtful. Because if you notice in part of the scene, which I'm going to play here in a bit, he's Daddy-O. And then he's like, yeah, hey, son, how you doing? But he was trying to leave. He thought he was going to call him from the road. That didn't work out. And so he said, yeah, well, hey, son, I just got to tell you about the trip. You know, something came up. I got a couple things going on. You understand that, son? And he was like, yeah, Dad, I understand. He said, yeah. He didn't say Dad. He said, yeah, I understand, Lou. He called him Lou. And see, that's a disconnect. And some parents don't want you to call them by their first name. I don't care if they're not in your life or not. They don't want you to do that because it does represent a disconnect. And sometimes it is a disconnect. I don't know you like that. So if you refer to that parent by a first name, you don't really know them. There wasn't a relationship there. And so we all have a unique story. And there's no one story better than the other. And it's filled with twists and turns. But this is a story, Will Smith, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, his father, and the story and how he was hurt. I felt that hurt before, and I'm sure there are many of you who felt that similar hurt. But in the end, it's still about forgiveness and moving on with your life, okay? Because the reality of it is there are those who show up for you, treasure them, appreciate them, value them, and don't forget to tell them thank you. Here's that clip for Will Smith, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, father-son.
What's up? Will, I'm glad you're here. Some business came up I gotta handle. So we're gonna have to put our trip on hold. You understand? Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just for a couple of weeks. I understand. Yeah. Maybe a little longer. Yeah, whatever. Look, I'll call you next week and we'll iron out the details, okay? Yeah. It was great seeing you, son. You too, Lou.
So we have to be careful with breaking our commitment. And I just want to say, I recall as a younger parent, I didn't know, because we as parents, we don't come with, there's no manuals. Yeah, there are examples and things of that nature. There are books and whatnot, but a lot of times you learn by trial and error, school of hard knocks, and what you observed or witnessed. And so growing up, I noticed that my daughter, my first daughter is Brinkley, and I learned a lot dealing with my first daughter because it was a thing to where if I said I was going to do something, it was something simple as, hey, I'm going to take you to the carnival, and something came up, it would really break her heart. And so I didn't realize that. I'm thinking, being a young person, you're thinking, oh, well, I'm going to work. I got to go to work. Got to get them donuts so we can, make sure things are good. And so it's like we use work or whatever it is we have to do as an excuse. But I learned later on, rather than making promises, it's best to say, we'll see. Dad, can I go to the carnival? Well, baby, we'll see. Because I'm not saying yes, I'm not saying no. But I can actually, it'll give me an option, it gives me wiggle room. And so when you say we'll see, that's a safe space right there. And so just different things of that nature. But again, you break trust, you break the communication. Sometimes make them not really want to talk to you. The relationships can take a turn, but we'll see is something that, I learned later on. And so I want to say this, is that I really can resonate greatly with this piece. It was one of the greatest ever, especially when he walks out and he was saying, hey, I ain't worried about it. I did this, I did that, and everything managed to work out without him. And he was very upset, and then he started crying. He got emotional. And what that reminded me of was when I found out at age 46 that my father who raised me wasn't my biological father. I asked him, I said, hey, Dad, I'd like to know, I have a question. He said, what's that? You got a question, you got to be ready for the answer. I said, I'm ready. I said, I'd like to know man to man, are you my biological father? He said, I'm your father, but I'm not your biological father. And I was like, whoa, it was just shocking to me. I'm 46 years old finding this out. There are people who are 8, 10, they find it out early on. Hey, well, that's really not your daddy, baby. But he's your dad, but your biological, because they want to tell you that truth. But actually, my mom was going to die with it, going to leave the earth. But I'm really glad, before my mom passed, that I was able to have that conversation with her. And my father, a lot of people say, well, how did your, dad that raised you feel about you, learning about your other dad, who I did get a chance to meet? And I said, well, he was the one who suggested that I find out who my biological father was. Because if you do that, you're able to know about your DNA, your history, and things of that nature. And so, and I'm glad I did do that. And we have to also understand that just because you find out who your biological father is, that doesn't mean you're going to sing Kumbaya. It doesn't make that person any greater than the person who was there for you. But the truth is, you have to be comfortable with your own tribe, those who are in your nucleus. Dad always told me that you are the nucleus of your surrounding, the cause of your success and failure. And you control a great deal of your food chain. So again, it's your circle, being able to take care of your circle. And so I've come to understand that love has nothing to do with just DNA. It has much to do with those people who just stood up for you, those people who teach you empathy, love, forgiveness, kindness, joy, respect. There's a number of things, gentleness, it's fruits of the spirit. And so I've learned so much, again, from my father, who's also passed. And they passed last year, a couple months apart. And so I'm just grateful to know, and I want to encourage those of you, who are in similar situations that may not feel that your father's not there and that type of thing. Again, I've met my biological father. It's not necessarily a tight relationship for whatever reason. It's not that I am choosing that, but people have a right, whether they're your biological or not. Because the reality of it is, as a biological father, some people are responsible for getting you here, but that does not mean that they will play a role necessarily in your development. So I've had many people stand up and pioneer for me, including my dad who raised me, gave me his name. And to me, what greater love than that? That a man who was not your biological father would play a role in your life, but still, play a significant part in your development. And so I just want to encourage those of you who are experiencing things, you want a relationship with your father, but sometimes you got to go to the Father, the source of all sources. And a lot of times, what greater love than that? It's the greatest love story ever told. And I know it's easier said than done, but sometimes you have someone down here physically. We're mortal beings, we're only here for a certain period of time. But while we're here, if you see a young man or a young lady, I think it's important, if you can, be a mentor or be in their life some sort of way. It does make a difference in who they ultimately become. I'm Gregory D. Anderson Jr. Greg Speaks Live.